Hello everyone and welcome to our Gem Pursuit. My name is Matthew Weldon and today I'm taking you on a magical and mysterious pursuit to the world of antique and vintage jewellery with a very special guest. You may have heard us mention our wonderful researcher Véronique Goguen at the end of our episodes recently. Well, we recently got a chance to meet her in Paris and she has actually come to Dublin today to record an episode with us. Now, when we were in Paris, we actually visited the Musée des Arts Décoratifs and Véronique has been there as well. So we are actually going to give you the down low on this amazing collection of antique and vintage jewellery and actually comes right through to some cool modern pieces. So let's get into it. First of all, Véronique, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here in Dublin for my first time.
Wow, this is your first time coming to Dublin.
Yes, exactly.
But you lived in London before, I believe. Is that
Yes.
right? Yeah. So first time in Dublin. So we'll definitely make the most of it when we're here. So I think let's just get straight into it. The Musée des Arts Décoratifs, very famous, but what's the highlight? What's it best known for?
So the Musée d'Arts Décoratifs, it's definitely renowned for its prestigious Art Nouveau collection. And it's not just how many pieces it has. So it has good quantity, but it's also the quality of the pieces. And it includes all the leaders of the Art Nouveau movement, such as exceptional pieces from René Lalique, Henri Vever, Georges Fouquet, Lucien Gaillard. So really all the top names that really formed the movement and all had their specialties. So you see pieces from Gaillard, which are combs in horn, and the beautiful plique-à-jour enamel from Fouquet and Lalique. And yeah, really great diversity of pieces and with all the Art Nouveau themes represented. So the female, fauna, flora. So it's really, yeah, just the overview of the Art Nouveau pieces are outstanding.
And you're obviously based in Paris and you're lucky enough that this is local enough to you. So someone who is going in, so it's got an amazing collection of Art Nouveau jewelry. What are people going to see when they go into the Musée des Arts Décoratifs?
So the museum, so it doesn't just have their wonderful Art Nouveau collection. It's a museum that has pieces from the medieval period to the modern period. And their collection contains over 5,000 pieces, but on display they have about 1,200. So really represent their collection, the whole jewelry history, especially from the 17th century. But so you can really see the different movements within jewelry. So the Romantic era, then after there's the Art Nouveau, Belle Époque pieces, to the Art Deco, retro, modern, a little bit of everything. And the way it's set up as well, it's the jewelry gallery within the museum. So it's a dedicated space with all the jewelry is there. And there's two rooms. So the first room will be from medieval till the 40s. And then the second room it starts with the artist jewelry. So that's another thing that's quite great about their collection is they have pieces that Picasso did, Georges Braque, Giacometti. So many different artists that decided after World War II to try a different medium. So they started doing jewelry. Most of them just designed them, but there's the exception of Calder, who actually made the jewelry himself. And I think there's about 3 pieces currently on display of Calder, large statement pieces.
Wow. God, it takes you through a whole generation of, it reminds me of like a candy store for jewelry enthusiasts.
Completely. Yeah, it really gives you a perfect overview and even for all the different types of materials used in jewelry. So you'll have some pieces out of coral, out of hair, out of cut steel, really all the different types of techniques, materials, and movements of jewelry is really featured there at this wonderful museum.
I think a lot of our listeners listen now would be, obviously we know a lot of the materials, your platinum, your diamond, your sapphire, ruby, but cut steel. And actually when we were there, I remember that hair jewelry suite. It was a big necklace, I think, and earrings made completely out of hair. I know it sounds a bit, and in our previous series, we did an episode on hair jewelry, and anyone who had an interest in that, I mean, the hair suite in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs is pretty incredible. And as you said, it goes right back to the 17th century. I mean, that's very early jewelry.
Yeah. So there's not so many pieces from the historical jewels. And one thing too, so the historical jewels like Roman, Greek, Etruscan, that's all at the Louvre. So more of the historic jewels are there. And also for, since in France, there's no more royalty. And when there was the monarchy, those jewels, whatever is remaining, which is not much, that's also at the Louvre. So at the Musée d'Art Décoratif, it's all private collections.
Okay.
So nothing with royal ties.
So people donate or lend, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. So the museum has 3 different ways that so either they purchased, either it was donated, or it's bequeathed. And one actually very important donor that pretty much started this whole gallery of jewels is the famous Art Nouveau creator / jewelry historian, Henri Vever, who published 3 tomes of very important books of French jewels of the 19th century. So while he was writing these books, he also collected jewelry. So in 1924, Henri Vever actually donated his collection of jewels, and that included 350 pieces. And within that, there was 60 of his own creations that he did with his brother, Paul. So that collection, and most of those pieces, if you look at, when you look at the jewelry, you'll see that a lot of the exceptional pieces are donated from Henri Vever. And his collection really included the best jewels of the time.
Yeah, I've seen his pieces in the collection, and they have just beautiful enamel work, like incredible plique-à-jour.
Exactly. All the craftsmanship is really...
Art Nouveau and his book, the Vever book, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be the first book I would buy if I was starting to get an interest in antique jewelry. But definitely if you've developed a bit of an interest and you've maybe collected 1 or 2 pieces, it's an amazing book.
Yeah.
It's hard to get. Though I think you told me you picked one up at a steal, didn't you?
Yeah, I recently added this book to my collection. And what's great is when you flip through it, so many of the jewels in the museum are represented in the book. So that's quite cool to...
It sounds like, that's really cool to actually see it in the book, and then it's in the museum. But like, it's amazing that he catalogued it, but also made and collected like.
Exactly. And his collection really included some of the best from François Désiré Formand Maurice, Eugène Fontenay, Alexandre Lucien Falise, Boucheron, Jules and Louis Weiss, Lalique, really all the best names, especially from the French makers.
Oh, yeah. And Felice, another name there, like very well known. In fact, we got offered a piece of Felice the other day. Very beautiful bangle. And there's a similar bangle in the museum, but the one that we were offered, it actually wasn't signed by Felice. Now, it's
quite recognizable.
It's recognizable. Like, and like Suzanne Bell-Perron said, like her signature was her style, right? And she has a couple of pieces in the museum as well. I mean, oh my God, it's everyone. It's one you've got to go to. And interesting, you mentioned there that the Louvre, which is, I believe it's just adjacent to it.
Yeah. Le Musée d'Art Décoratif is technically a building of the Louvre, although it's not connected.
It's right beside it, though.
Yeah, it is right beside it.
And you mentioned that the royal jewels are in the Louvre, and the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, they have this journey through time with this incredible Art Nouveau collection. And I asked you before we did this episode, Veronique, I kind of said to you, a very difficult question for anyone who loves jewelry so much as I know you do. Would you prefer that we talked about the collection in the Louvre, the royal jewels, or the collection in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs? And without much hesitation, you said the Musée des Arts Décoratifs. Why did you go for that one?
I like that the collection is quite diverse.
Yes.
And also it includes some of my favorite jewelers, such as Raymond Templier, and all the other modernists from the 1920s, 30s. So that's one part of their collection I really like, but it's also for the diversity that it includes and how it touches all the different art jewelry periods.
Yeah, it really covers, it's pretty much everything that you're likely to see in jewelry. So it's great for anyone who wanted to understand any time period, it's really a great one to see, and you can compare it. And you said expansive collection. Now, when I was doing my research for this, now granted, you did a lot of the research that I used, but I actually did some additional, believe it or not. But I came across the same thing that you said, the numbers in the collection. I couldn't quite get my head around them. It seemed like there was about 1,000 on display, but 5,000 in total.
Yeah.
What?
That's the thing. I was a little confused as well. On their website, both numbers are stated. So it says 5,000 in their collection, but then 1,200 on display. So I'm assuming that not everything that they have is, some of the stuff is in the vaults, sadly. Because I also read that none of the pieces have ever been all presented at once.
So still to come, we're going to go into a deep dive on some really special pieces that are at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs. Of course, a beautiful collection of French jewels in the main. And we have got some really nice French jewels which are on our Instagram this week. So make sure you check them out.
As previously mentioned, this is a museum which has some of the best Art Nouveau. So this means it has a large quantity of René Lalique pieces. The only other museum that has as many is from René Lalique's patron, Gulbenkian, which is the museum in Lisbon. And there at that museum, there's the Lalique Dragonfly Lady, which is quite popular. But at the Musée d'Art Décoratifs, we have Henri Vever's version of the Butterfly Lady. So this is a very exceptional piece. Her name is Sylvia. And she was created for the exhibition universelle of 1900 in Paris and actually won a prize for this piece. And so this is quite an exceptional...
Funny enough, as you'll know from the episodes, we always pick one of our favourite pieces. And myself, at least, we never tell each other what the favourite piece is. And we had a little chat before this, just kind of saying, you mentioned that. And funny enough, if you look at what I had done for my favourite piece.
Sylvia. Well, I'll let you tell about Sylvia, because I've got other pieces I can.
Yeah, no, well, I'm glad you brought it up. Well, Sylvia. Oh, well, I'm going to love hearing about these other pieces. I mean, this, as you said, there's 1,200 on display, right? There's so many. And the pieces that you mentioned that are artists who also make them, like they're really where jewellery transcends art. But the Sylvia pendant, first of all, the construction of it's pretty incredible. It's got the most amazing enameling plique à jour and carved gemstones on agates, and I think moonstone, I believe the head is made out of. It's beautifully made. It's the scale of it as well. If I was to try and describe it to you looking at it here, no, sorry, I don't have it here with me, obviously it's in the museum, but I would describe it as a dragonfly lady, as you said. The wings are plique à jour, encrusted with diamonds on the outside, and she's got like 3 wings on each side, and then another long wing down the bottom, and that's set with large stones. Then you've got enamel decoration on the back of her. You've got some, I believe, garnets set into her chest, which look like her heart, and then she's got these, I don't know what you call them, not tentacles, but on top of her head, sensors that kind of curl out, and they're diamond encrusted, and they almost go into a helmet that's on her head. And her actual body in her head is carved out of either, I think it could be rock crystal looking at it here. So it's down as agate, but I think it's probably a rock crystal. But any one of those skills is a difficult skill. Like to do plique à jour, normally it's just plique à jour, like that's it. But it's with these stones set into it, with the enameling, with the unusual shapes. It's really, it's something quite incredible. And it symbolizes like victory. It's like an allegory of victory. The Vever brothers were really obsessed with the reconquest of the Alsace and Lorraine since its annexation in 1871. So, this was a really important piece for them. But I mean, as you said, there's so many pieces. What other ones would you pick out if you had to pick? I wanted to ask for one favorite. What about a couple that you?
So there's a few. So I really love there's a few Raymond Templier pieces, and I absolutely love this jeweler because of the aesthetic and the pieces that they have. There's 2 brooches. One is just platinum and diamonds, but it's the geometric shape that's just very sleek and very timeless. It's insane to think that this piece was presented at one of the exhibitions in 1932, and the museum purchased it from that exhibition. And there's also another brooch, and this one is with the onyx, and they're not the flashiest pieces at all. They're quite discreet, but I think it's just how contemporary they remain.
For older pieces.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I really like as well the artist jewelry, and especially the Georges Braque pieces. And he had collaborated with somebody to do these. And he was actually the first, they did the first exhibition of jewels dedicated to Georges Braque in 1963. At the Musée d'Arts Décoratifs, yeah. So that was one of their first exhibitions dedicated to jewelry. And it was during the artist's lifetime, which is not very often that this happens.
Yeah, normally they have to have passed on before they become popular. Yeah, thankfully for this guy, Georges Braque, was it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know his pieces. Yeah,
he has these two brooches, the Hades and Hera, that I absolutely love. They're like two figures, one with the Hades with rubies and the Hera's with sapphires. And those are quite standout pieces.
Oh, yes, I remember those. Yeah, they were really cool, actually.
Yeah. They're just, I remember one of the first times I went to the Galerie de Bijoux, they were just the pieces that stayed on my mind. And I always loved the idea of artists trying the medium of jewelry.
Yeah, and it's, there's obviously amazing gemstones available, and you'll see amazing gemstones here. I mean, you would see there's some really nice Burmese rubies, cashmere sapphires, but I think it is that where the jewelry becomes art. I mean, that is when it becomes really, really special. We couldn't not talk about a Lalique piece, really, though, could we? I know Vever has the Sylvia, but Lalique, it's one of the finest collections of Lalique as well. And it's actually probably a name that a lot of people would recognize, even if they don't know a lot about jewelry. But Lalique isn't, he used bats in his jewelry.
Yeah.
And isn't there a very important piece, or which Lalique piece would you...
So there's actually two Lalique pieces now to think of it. So there's a set of a ring and an anklet with bats that was actually a gift from the famous courtisane Liliane de Pougy, that you might know. So she gifted these two items to her lover, Natalie Clifford Banney, who was an American writer. And the symbolism of bats was associated to the underground and was a symbol for homosexuality.
They were lesbians.
Yeah, exactly. And there's even a little inscription on the ring. In French, it says, "Tant me plaît que tu souffres de me comprendre et de m'aimer," which
I'm very happy you said that.
Yeah, which kind of roughly translates to that you struggle to understand and love me pleases me so much.
I mean, think of the time period of this as well. This would have been, even for the jewelers making it, it would have been quite risque to make it. And the bats were symbolic, obviously, of their relationship. And also, like in jewelry terms, it's quite an unusual subject, like a bat. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember those pieces. They're quite striking, actually. Yeah. And an anklet as well.
Yeah, that I thought was funny.
Yeah.
And also the enamel is supposed to be the color of the recipient's eyes.
Ah.
So a little romantic touch there too. But one piece I forgot to mention that I absolutely love. It's a brooch by René Lalique called The Kiss. And this piece, you really have to see it in person because pictures will not do it justice. But it's a woman, there's faces of a woman and a man, and they are kissing, and that's engraved in glass. But what's amazing with this, and then there's also...
I remember that piece. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, this piece. And it has an engravement that says, "I dream of kisses that last forever." And then when I was researching this piece, so the story behind it is René Lalique had an affair with a lady, and then she became pregnant.
Right.
And this was a hidden love story. It's only when the son, the kid that was born from this affair, donated the piece to the museum that they were able to confirm this secret love affair.
This was the kiss, Yeah.
Yeah. So it's...
rock crystal, I believe, is it?
No, it's just glass. Molded glass with enamel. And it was donated in 1960. So this was Lalique's granddaughter that revealed this mystery to the Musée d'Art Décoratifs.
So they didn't know he had a son.
Exactly. It was a secret love.
Oh, how scandalous.
And so the son who then donated the piece, his name was René Lalique.
I remember that piece specifically. As I recall, it's actually engraved from the front and the back.
Exactly. So the lips is what connects the two pieces. And that's the thing. There's so much the emotions in the faces of these people. You can tell that this jewel, there was something intimate.
So symbolic, as you said. So
exactly.
Again, so there's a piece of glass, right? It's hard to describe it.
Exactly. And
it's a piece of glass. Looks like it's like lozenge shaped, but it's engraved from the front on one side and the back on the other, and the lips meet in the middle of the glass, and it's got the double aspect to it, if you want to call it that. So, whoa, and it's got such a scandalous history behind it, but you can kind of tell by looking at it.
Exactly. It's the emotions of the two faces that it's such an intriguing piece. So, and then when you discover the story behind it, just adds a whole new level.
Yeah, that really is. And actually, now thinking about it, that is one of the pieces when you leave. I think it's one that sticks in the mind, doesn't it?
Yeah. And also the mount is just made of silver. So this also just proves that exceptional jewels, and then it's glass. So there's not any materials of intrinsic value, but that does not diminish the piece as a work of art. So that's, I think, one thing that's quite impressive and really representative of Art Nouveau jewelry.
So you've got the two rooms, right? But obviously it's not the only thing available in this museum. And for somebody visiting, I mean, you could spend a long time just in this Galerie de Bijoux. But there was also another exhibition there recently, wasn't there? Yeah.
So the museum, it holds all decorative arts. So that includes furniture, ceramic, glass, textiles, graphic arts. Actually, the museum also has an amazing collection of jewellery gouache. So the drawings from Vever, from Fouquet, and also more recently acquired from L'Enfant and Sandoz. And a lot of this stuff is, you can access it from their website. So you can view their collections.
Yeah, that's one thing that you'll notice, when we're trying to buy jewelry for the shop, is that these gouaches are these like little paintings that are originally done. These are the sketches, right? So that the jeweler does of what they want the piece to look like in the end. And if you can actually get, now this is not from the museum, right? But if you can find a piece of jewelry and I get the original gouache or drawing with it, it's extra special. And I just find it amazing that it's another skill set that these people have to actually be able to draw it and then make it from metal and stones. It's some really cool pieces there with the gouaches.
It's interesting to see when it's in a 2D to then see it transform into a 3-dimensional object. But yeah, the exhibition that you mentioned, it's Parcours Bijoux, Mode and Design. And what's interesting for this, so they've redone the layout from the collection, and usually in the Galerie de Bijoux, there's a few pieces by Jean Després. Now, for this exhibition, they've released from the vault several rings and brooches from Després. So this is worth going to check out as well.
Definitely worth. And I think possibly like in another 40, 50 years, they'll be like we'll be talking about those pieces in the same breath as maybe Vever. Like no one knows how history will remember these pieces exactly, but it's definitely one to look at. And the whole exhibition is in that additional piece is really cool. We were there actually, and I think you said to me something really important. Just if you're there, I think it runs up until October or November.
November, that exhibition.
November 2024. Yeah. So when you get to it, there's another lift that takes you to another 2 stories of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not easy to find the whole exhibition, but I think it's like level 3, 4, 5, or it's on 3 floors. So just make sure to do all the floors.
Yeah, because I think I might have missed it now, to be honest. So, but I think the collection then, let's just talk a little about the collection in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, because, you know, we're going to share some posts on our Instagram just with some of the key pieces that we saw when we were there. And you can look these up in the show notes of this episode. But just a little bit about, because it's an amazing collection, isn't it? Like it's as you said, it goes from the 17th century, 16th century, even possibly up until modern times. When did they start collecting these pieces, and how did they amass such a massive collection?
So this museum actually launched in 1878.
Right.
And so, of course, Henri Vever was one of the big donors that contributed. But then there was a lot of other, either some jewelry merchants so a lot of the Etruscan revival and Castellani pieces, these came from a jewelry merchant who handed over his collection. Then there's also a big collection of Boucheron tie pins, and that was from a famous banker. So the collection of tie pins belonged to Nissim de Camondo, and this man actually has also a museum in Paris with all his other collections. And also there was the Rothschild that donated a considerable amount of jewels. And also there's many artists that they donated their pieces to the museum, either to conserve their work. For example, Jean Després, he donated a lot of his pieces in 1977.
So in the collection, in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, we've talked a lot about some of the very well-known French makers, your Fouquet, Vever, and some of the origins of the collection. But I think it's really important just for people to know as well that although this is, of course, centered on French collections, there is also some other pieces. When you're there, you'll also know some Chinese jewelry pieces, some Mughal, and some Japanese. And of course, anyone who's listened to our last couple of episodes will know that the influence of Japan on the jeweler at this time was also very important. So you will see a lot of different pieces from these Asian countries in this display as well. And I think what's amazing is that, you know, we talked about this is 2 rooms, right? And they're quite big rooms, but not massive. But obviously with jewelry, because it's so small, you could spend hours looking through these 2 small rooms, and which I'm sure you do. And we did. We spent, I think when we were there, you know, the time you'd want to give yourself, I think we were in these 2 rooms. We were in the first one for about 2 hours, I think, and the second one for maybe an hour and a half or something like that. The first one has probably more in it, I'd say. But just if you're thinking of visiting, you certainly want to give yourself that type of time frame to do it as well. Well, we are going to wrap it up there on our trips to the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris. Again, I would really encourage you, if you have an interest in jewellery and it's viable, to definitely visit this museum. Entrance is reasonable, as I recall, and it's well worth a visit for the really special pieces, but also to get the history and the pathway of jewellery through the ages. For anyone who's listening, I would also say, if you're not, I would really appreciate it if you follow this podcast, because the more followers we get, the more we can invest in the podcast, and the more research we can do and different guests that we can get. So if you're not already, and I know a lot of you are, click that follow button, and thank you very much. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, we have notes on what we spoke about with links and anything else you might need in the description area of this podcast. I'd like to thank our very special guest, Véronique Goguen, who did both the research and the episode today. Thank you, Véronique.
Well, thank you, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
And I'd also like to thank our podcast producer, dustpod.io. We'll be back with another magical and mysterious pursuit to the world of antique jewellery very soon. Until the next time, from me, your host, Matthew Weldon, thank you very much.